The rain hammered the tin roof of the old boathouse like it was trying to drown out the world. But it couldn't touch the scream ripping from my throat as Brody's fist connected with the wooden beam beside my head. Elias, God damn it. You think this is easy for me? His voice cracked, blue eyes wild with a storm fiercer than the one outside. And in that split second, I saw the boy I'd fallen for 9 years ago. The one who'd whispered promises in the dark. Shatter into the man who was about to walk away forever. I grabbed his collar, yanking him close enough to feel the heat of his breath. The salt of our tears mixing with the downpour seeping through the cracks. Easy? You've been my everything, Brody. 9 years of stolen nights, and now you're just gone. My heart pounded like a freight train derailing, the kind that leaves wreckage for miles, because I knew this wasn't just a fight. This was the end, scripted by a ring on his finger and vows he'd never meant for me. He pulled back, his broad shoulders slumping under the weight of a flannel shirt soaked through. The same one he'd worn on our first hike up in the Cascades. I love you, Eli, but this life, it ain't built for us. Not here. Not now. And with that, he turned toward the door, the creak of it swinging open like the final page of a book I'd never wanted to finish. That was the night it all unraveled, but to understand the wreckage, you have to go back to the beginning. Back to a sticky summer in Seattle, 2014, when I was 22 and fresh out of community college, chasing a pipe dream of coaching high school baseball in the shadow of the Space Needle. I'd grown up in a crumbling suburb on the east side, the kind where dads worked the docks and moms chain-smoked on porches, yelling at kids to stop dreaming bigger than their station. Me? I was the queer kid who hid crushes behind curveballs and batting averages, out to my mom at 16 after she found my hidden stash of indie films with too many brooding boys. She hugged me tight, said, "You're my Eli and that's enough." But the world outside our duplex wasn't so forgiving. Tacoma wasn't San Francisco. It was trucker hats and Bible study groups that whispered about those types ruining the neighborhood. I landed the assistant coaching gig at Roosevelt High, a sprawling brick behemoth in Capitol Hill, where the air smelled like coffee roasts from the cafes lining Broadway, and the faint tang of Puget Sound fog rolling in off the bay. That's where I met Brody Harlan, first baseman for the varsity team, a 6'2" farm boy from rural Snohomish County, with hands like catcher's mitts and a grin that could melt the perpetual drizzle. He was 18, all raw power and quiet intensity, the kind of kid who hit homers like it was breathing and quoted Hemingway in English class like it was small talk. Our eyes locked during tryouts, him swinging for the fences while I clocked his swing from the sidelines, and something electric hummed between us, unspoken but alive. It started innocent enough. Extra batting practice after school, me tossing pitches while he joked about my city boy accent. Hell, we were only 40 miles from where I'd grown up, but to him, Seattle was another planet. We'd linger in the dugout, sharing Gatorade and stories. His about endless apple orchards and a dad who expected him to take over the family spread. Mine about sneaking into dive bars to hear folk singers croon about lost loves. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the Olympics, painting the field gold, he brushed dirt off my shoulder after a foul ball ricocheted too close. His touch lingered, fingers tracing my collarbone, and I froze, heart slamming like a fastball. "You ever feel like you're playing a game you don't know the rules to?" he murmured, voice low, eyes flicking to mine with a vulnerability that punched me in the gut. "All the time," I whispered back, and that was it. The spark that ignited 9 years of fire we'd have to keep banked low. By fall, we were stealing moments. Late-night drives up to Discovery Park, where we'd park the truck and talk for hours, hands brushing on the gearshift until one of us caved and pulled the other close. Our first kiss was under a canopy of madronas, salty from the inland sea air. His lips tentative at first, then hungry, like he'd been starving for it. "This is crazy," he gasped against my neck. But he didn't stop, and neither did I. We were careful, God, so careful. In a city that prided itself on rainbows but still had corners where coming out meant losing everything. Brody's family was old-school Norwegian stock, church every Sunday, expectations heavier than the evergreens. They'd disown me, he'd say, voice hollow, and I'd nod, swallowing the ache, because loving him meant loving the shadows we hid in. Those early years blurred into a rhythm of secrecy. Him heading off to Washington State for college on a partial scholarship, me grinding through night classes for my teaching cert while subbing gigs kept the lights on. We'd meet halfway in Olympia, crashing in cheap motels off I-5, whispering futures we both knew were fragile. Someday, he'd say, tracing patterns on my chest with calloused fingers. We'll get a place with a view of the sound. Coach kids together. No more hiding. I'd believe him because the alternative, losing him, was a void I couldn't stare into. Graduation came, and Brody landed back in Seattle, apprenticing at a craft brewery in Fremont. Tall tales of IPAs and hazy Alesh masking the beer he'd brew in his garage from his dad's old recipes. I got my full-time spot at Roosevelt, molding awkward teens into diamond dreams. Our lives intertwined like the roots under Ravenna Park. Sunday hikes where we'd hold hands only when the trails emptied, coffee runs to Victrola where he'd bump my knee under the table, stolen weekends in a cabin up near Index where the only witnesses were the cedars. 9 years. 9 years of I love yous murmured in truck cabs, of patching each other's wounds. His from family barbecues where uncles grilled him about settling down. Mine from school board meetings where family values code meant sidelong glances at the gay coach. But cracks formed, slow as Seattle's creeping mold. Brody turned 27, and the pressure mounted. His dad passed, heart attack in the orchard, scythe in hand, and the family farm called him home more, whispers of legacy and carrying on the name. At a Harlan clan reunion in Snohomish, he came back hollow-eyed, reeking of bourbon and regret. They keep asking when I'm gonna find a nice girl, Eli, like it's a checklist. We fought that night in my cramped Queen Anne apartment, rain lashing the windows like accusations. You're enough? I pleaded, but he paced, fists clenched, the weight of generations on his shoulders. Then came Sarah. She was a barista at his brewery spot. Petite, freckled, with a laugh like wind chimes and a theology degree from Seattle Pacific that made her the perfect, good Christian girl in his folks' eyes. They met at a church picnic, or so he told me, voice flat over burner phones we'd switched to for safety. It's nothing, he swore, but I saw the photos on Facebook. Her hand in his at a Mariners game, his arm around her at a harvest festival. Jealousy gnawed at me like damp rot, but I swallowed it because pushing meant losing. The proposal was a gut punch. He called me from a payphone outside a tavern in Ballard, voice slurred from one too many porters. Eli, it's happening. Dad's will. The farm. She gets it, you know? Stability. I drove to him blind, tires hydroplaning on slick streets, and we ended up at Alki Beach, waves crashing like my unraveling pulse. Marry me instead, I begged, down on one knee in the surf, ringless but raw. He hauled me up, kissed me fierce enough to bruise, but his eyes were ghosts. I can't. Not like this. But you're my heart. Always. The wedding was small, in a chapel off Aurora Avenue, her in lace, him in a suit that hung loose like it didn't fit. I wasn't invited, couldn't be. But I watched from a distance, parked in the lot with a flask of whiskey, rain blurring the stained glass. 9 years, and I was the ghost at the feast. For a while it worked, or we made it work. Stolen texts at 2 a.m. Miss you, coded in emojis only we understood. He'd sneak away for guys' nights, ending up in my bed, bodies tangling like we could rewind time. Sarah didn't suspect. She was busy with youth group and wedding planning, blind to the man who'd cry in my arms after. This is temporary, he'd murmur, but the ring on his finger felt like a noose tightening. Then the bomb dropped. 6 months in, Sarah, now Harlan, announced she was pregnant. Twins, they said at the ultrasound. A boy and a girl, the farm's future secured. Brody called me from the hospital parking lot, voice breaking. Eli, what have I done? I drove over, held him in the cab while monitors beeped inside, but the chasm widened. Fatherhood loomed, and with it, the role he'd play. Doting husband, pillar of the community. That's when the mentoring gig came calling, twisting the knife deeper. Sarah, ever the organizer, volunteered at the local little league in Fremont, coaching a ragtag team of 10-year-olds called the Trolls, after the famous statue under the bridge. With the brewery booming, Brody had flexible hours, and she beamed at dinner parties about how he could give back, share his diamond prowess with the kids. It'll be perfect for you, Han. Building character, like your dad did. He agreed because saying no meant questions and questions meant cracks in the facade. I heard about it through the grapevine. My own team at Roosevelt played exhibition games against the leagues, and word spread fast in the Seattle sports scene. Harlan's coaching juniors now? Man, those kids are lucky. My head coach said over post-game beers at the Pike Place Brewery. Lucky. The word stuck in my craw like a bad hop. I pictured him on the field, barking drills in that gravelly baritone. Sarah cheering from the bleachers with a cooler of snacks, oblivious to the man who'd once whispered sonnets to me under stadium lights. The first clash came at a scrimmage in Golden Gardens Park, salt air thick with hot dogs and sunscreen. I was their scouting talent for high school recruits, clipboard in hand, when I spotted him. Brody, in a faded Cougar's cap and whistle around his neck, demonstrating a perfect swing to a gaggle of wide-eyed boys. Our eyes met across the diamond. His widening in shock, mine narrowing in fury, and the world narrowed to that frozen beat, the crack of a bat echoing like gunfire. He jogged over during a water break, casual as you please, but his hands shook as he gripped the fence. Eli, hey, didn't expect you here. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Not from the sun, but the lie we both lived. Yeah, well, life's full of surprises. I shot back, voice low, glancing at Sarah 50 yards away, chatting with parents, her hand on a swelling belly. How's the family man gig treating you? His jaw tightened, that familiar tick when he was cornered. It's good. The kids are great. Teaching him fundamentals, you know? He leaned closer, voice dropping. Miss R talks about this stuff. You coaching varsity now. Proud of you. Proud. The word hung between us, laced with what-ifs. I wanted to grab him, drag him to the truck, remind him of the nights we dissected game tapes on my couch. Bodies pressed close, dreams spilling out like extra innings. But Sarah called his name. Brody, honey, lineup's ready. And he straightened, flashing that public smile. Gotta go. But coffee sometime? For old times. I nodded, throat tight, and watched him trot back. The easy way he high-fived a kid making my chest ache. Old times. As if 9 years could be boiled down to nostalgia. The coffee started tentative. Neutral ground at a drive-thru in Wallingford. Him in the passenger seat with a to-go cup, eyes darting like we were casing a joint. We'd talk shop. His trolls struggling with bunts. My Roosevelt squad eyeing state playoffs. But underneath simmered the unsaid, bubbling up in touches. His knee against mine, a hand on my thigh when traffic slowed. Sarah's nesting, he'd say, deflecting. Wants me home more. But God, Eli, I dream about you. Us. I'd pull over in a side lot, kiss him hard against the door, tasting regret and hops on his tongue. This isn't living, Brody. It's surviving. He'd nod, eyes haunted, but drive away to her, to the life he'd built on sand. Fall turned to winter, the twins due in January, and the strain showed. His texts grew sporadic, excuses piling up, farm chores, coaching clinics. I threw myself into work, running suicides until my legs burned, ignoring the pitying looks from colleagues who sensed my unraveling. Seattle's gray skies mirrored my mood, relentless drizzle eroding resolve. One night, after a Trolls victory party at the brewery, he showed up at my door, drunk on victory and IPA, Sarah home with a migraine. Eli, he slurred, collapsing onto my couch. I can't do this. Watching those kids hit their first double. It reminds me of us. Pure. Before all the bullshit. He pulled me down, arms wrapping tight, and we clung like shipwreck survivors, bodies fitting like lost puzzle pieces. I love you. More than anything. We made love. Slow, tender. The kind that stitches souls. But dawn brought shame. He dressed in silence. Wedding band glinting like an accusation. This has to stop. For the babies. His voice broke, and mine did too, but I let him go, door clicking shut like a lock turning. The betrayal hit at the worst moment. Valentine's Day of all goddamn days. I was at a faculty mixer in the school library, nursing a flat beer, when my phone buzzed. A group chat from the Little League admins. Congrats to Coach Harlan on the promotion. Sarah's thrilled. Full-time head coach next season. Family that plays together. Family. The word seared. I bolted to my truck, rain sheeting the windshield, and drove to the farm uninvited, the 40 minutes blurring into rage. Snohomish sprawled dark and silent, orchard skeletal under security lights. His pickup was in the drive, porch light on like a beacon. I pounded the door, heart thundering. Sarah answered, robe loose over her bump, confusion softening to concern. Elias? From the games? Brody's inside. He appeared behind her, face paling. Eli, what? You promoted? I snarled, voice echoing off the clapboard. Full time? With her cheering you on. Sarah's eyes widened, hand protective on her belly. The team? He mentioned it. It's great for us, right, Han? Brody stepped forward, blocking her view, but it was too late. Eli, not here. Please. The please undid me. 9 years, Brody. I was your family first. The words hung, raw and exposed, and Sarah's gasp sliced the night. What does that mean? Her voice trembled, piecing it together. The late nights, the distance. Brody turned to her, defeated. Sarah, God, I'm sorry. But he didn't deny it, and that was the knife twist. She backed away, tears spilling. Get out. Both of you. The door slammed, lock clicking, and we stood in the mud, rain mixing with sobs. He grabbed my arm, desperate. Eli, wait. No. I wrenched free, backing toward my truck. You chose. Live with it. I peeled out, tires spinning gravel. The farm shrinking in the rearview like a bad dream. Betrayal burned hot, but under it, grief. A vast, howling thing. 9 years, reduced to a porch confrontation in the sticks. Winter broke with the twins' arrival. February 14th, ironically, a boy and girl they named after his parents, Harlan and Ingrid. Brody texted updates, pleas for forgiveness, but I ghosted him, burying pain in lesson plans and pickup games. Spring training rolled in, fields greening under tentative sun, and the scrimmages resumed. We avoided each other, me scouting from afar, him drilling his team with mechanical precision. Sarah attended every game, smile brittle as Rice Krispies, but the chill between them was palpable, a frost no Seattle thaw could melt. One evening, after a rainout, I lingered in the parking lot, wiping down gear. When he approached, twins bundled in a double stroller, Sarah's absence noted. They're beautiful, I said, voice neutral, peering at their sleeping faces. His nose, her eyes. Yeah, he sighed, rocking the carriage. Eli, we need to talk. For real. I crossed my arms, leaning on my Civic. What's left to say? Everything. His voice cracked, eyes red-rimmed. I screwed up, told Sarah. All of it. She's filing. Therapy, maybe, but it's over. The world tilted. And us. He stepped closer, vulnerable as that 18-year-old on the field. If you'll have me, no more secrets. I want the life we dreamed. Coaching side by side, rain or shine. I searched his face, seeing the boy, the man, the future. Hope flickered, fragile as a first bloom. Prove it. Summer unfurled in Seattle like a reluctant promise. Elliott Bay sparkling under rare blue skies, ferries cutting wakes like silver arrows. The city humming with mariners' crowds and weekend markets. Brody proved it, slow and steady, the way you'd rebuild a house after a quake. He moved into a studio in Ballard, a stone's throw from the brewery but worlds from the farm. Exposed brick walls lined with our old Cougars posters, a view of the locks where salmon leaped against the current. Sarah got the house, the stability. He got weekends with the twins, co-parenting with a wary truce forged in family court and shared drop-offs. It's messy, he'd admit over takeout pho, chopsticks pausing midair. But she's tough, wants what's best for them. I believed him because action spoke. He showed up to my games, not as a ghost but a fixture, chatting with parents about swing mechanics, his laugh genuine for the first time in months. No more knee bumps under tables. Instead, handholds and empty bleachers after crowds thinned. Fingers interlaced like it was the most natural thing. Coming out publicly was a gauntlet. Texts to siblings, calls to aunts who gasped then hugged through tears. But Seattle, for all its drizzly cynicism, wrapped us in reluctant acceptance. My mom met him over coffee at her duplex, eyeing his calloused hands before pulling him into a bear hug. Treat my boy right, or I'll swing a mean bat, she warned, and he grinned, promising the moon. We coached together that fall, him with the trolls, me scouting crossovers. Dreams manifesting in dusty diamonds and kids' cheers. One crisp October afternoon at Discovery Park, fields golden with turning maples, we ran a joint clinic. 20 pint-sized hopefuls rotating stations, Brody demoing slides while I broke down steals. A curly-haired boy, maybe 8, tugged my sleeve. Coach Eli is Coach Brody, you know? He mimed a heart, innocent as a pop fly. I knelt, heart swelling. Yeah, buddy. He is. Brody overheard, pausing mid-drill. His smile brighter than the sound at sunset. That night, we celebrated with crab cakes at Ivor's, toasting with IPAs he'd brewed special, hazy with notes of pine and redemption. To us, he said, clinking glasses, and for the first time, it felt real unshadowed. But life ain't a straight fastball. Curves come howling. Winter hit hard. Record rains flooding the fields, canceling practices, confining us to indoor cages that smelled of rubber mats and sweat. The twins turned one in a joint party at the park, balloons bobbing like buoys, Sarah and her new beau, a gentle engineer type, mingling awkwardly with my side of the bleachers. Brody held Ingrid while Harlan toddled at his feet, and seeing him father so fiercely twisted something in me. Pride laced with envy, the what-ifs of paths not taken. Then the call came, late February, as sleep pelted the windows of our new place. A one-bedroom in Fremont with creaky floors and a balcony overlooking the canal. Brody's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He answered groggy, then bolted upright. Dad's attorney? What? His face drained, voice dropping to whispers. Turns out, the farm's mortgage had ballooned under hidden debts. His father's investments in bad crops and worse loans. The bank was foreclosing. Sarah's settlement tangled in the mess. We lose it, the kid's future. Everything crumbles. He paced the kitchen, flannel untucked, while I brewed coffee strong as regret. Sell the brewery stake? I suggested, but he shook his head, eyes distant. That's our safety net. No, I gotta fix this. For them. The fix was a ghost from our past. Harlan Farms needed a buyer, fast, and the only one stepping up was his uncle Lars, a hard-edged developer from Everett, with plans to raise orchards for condos. But Lars had conditions. Brody sign over full custody weekends, prove he was stable, hinting at the divorce scandal. Settle down proper. The email read, veiled threat in legalese. Brody stared at it over breakfast, fork hovering. If I do this, Eli, it means going back. Pretending. For the farm. For the kids. The room chilled, our fragile peace cracking. Pretending? After everything. My voice rose, echoing off the exposed beams. You said no more secrets. It's not like that. He slammed the table, coffee sloshing. It's sacrifice. For family. Family. The word soured. Am I family, or just the side hustle? We fought like we hadn't since the wedding. Words flying like errant throws, accusations ricocheting. He stormed out to the balcony, rain mingling with curses. I hurled a mug at the wall, shards scattering like broken vows. Hours later, he returned, soaked and spent, dropping to his knees before me. I'm scarred. Eli. Losing the farm. It's losing Dad all over. But losing you? That's death. I pulled him up, holding tight as the storm raged outside. Then fight for both. Sell to someone else. Crowdfund. For God's sake. Seattle eats that hipster farm save crap up. He laughed, bitter than real, burying his face in my neck. You're right. Always are. We rallied. A GoFundMe laced with photos of gnarled apple trees and Brody's childhood tales. Shared across brewery taps and Little League chats. Seattle responded, rainbow flags and flannel sleeves uniting in a frenzy of donations. From $5 baristas to $500 tech, bros nostalgic for authentic roots. Sarah chipped in anonymously, a text later reading, for the kids. And you deserve this shot, Brody. By spring, we'd saved it, not whole, but halved and least sustainable, a co-op model with community plots. The high came at summer solstice, longest day painting the sky lavender as we stood in the orchard, twins giggling in carriers on our chests. Brody poured soil through their tiny fists, whispering, "This is yours now, no strings." Lars grumbled but signed off, and as the sun dipped, we kissed under the blooms, petals drifting like confetti. But humanity's in the scars, not the triumphs. That fall, during playoffs, a Trolls game turned ugly. A parent from the other side, red-faced and bellowing slurs when Brody and I shared a sideline hug. Freak show coaches ruining the kids. The league ejected him, but the venom lingered, a reminder that acceptance is patchwork, not seamless. Brody froze post-game, replaying it in his head. I found him later by the truck, shoulders shaking. What if they're right? What if I taint them? I cupped his face, fierce. They'll learn strength from us. Love that endures rain, fights, floods. That's the real legacy. He nodded, pulling me close, and we drove home slow, windows down to the chill night air scented with salt and possibility. 9 years of secrets forged us unbreakable, or so I tell myself on gray mornings when doubt creeps in. Brody's still the boy who swung for fences. I'm still the coach calling strikes. But now we step into light together, hand in hand. The twins call us both, duh. Sarah's our ally in co-ed barbecues, and the farm blooms with strangers' hands tending rows. It's not perfect. Divorce echoes, slurs whisper, but it's human. Messy, resilient, achingly real. Last week, hiking the Cascades like old times, Brody stopped at our Madrona spot, dropping to one knee with a ring, simple tungsten, etched with coordinates of that first kiss.
Marry me, Ellie.
For keeps. I said yes, tears mixing with sweat, because after 9 years of shadows, we'd earned the sun. And in America, the land of reinvention, where rain washes clean, we're writing our own ending, one stolen glance, one shared swing at a time.